What's up, guys? Welcome back to the EmpowerUp Podcast. So we have another special guest with us today. This is my good friend Barry Evans. Barry and I actually went to school together at San Diego State. You may have heard me mention him on previous episodes with our guests Jacob Freeland or Kane Shepard. So we've all worked together for a while. Barry started the club that we kind of were all a part of, and he currently works at. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and let you explain and give your background and what you're currently doing, Barry.
Sure. Yeah. So currently, just for the past few months, I've joined Naughty Dog as a technical artist. Before that, I was at Sony PlayStation in San Diego as a associate graphics programmer. Um, and before that, at a little niche creative department inside of Sony as a technical artist. So I've been kind of all over the spectrum with that.
Awesome, man. And so the cool thing about Barry, always pretty inspiring to me. I think he's kind of a genius with what the kind of the stuff he does. Um, but you actually got your position before even graduating, right? Do you like? I don't think I ever found out exactly how that happened. Can you kind of explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, I've never gotten into a job the designed way to get in. I always come in the back door. But yeah, how that happened was actually a pretty fun story. So there's a long chain, as with getting any job, there's a long chain of events that kind of led to it. But essentially, we had been doing the game development club for a while. And the dude at San Diego State, Sean Hose, you probably know him, Byron. He is he runs the ITS department at State,
Hmm.
and he was doing a kind of like a symposium or like a convention type thing where some people from industry would come and some educators would come, and then there were a select few students that came, and he asked me to speak at it. So I believe I was speaking about AR and education because I had done an internship at a VR AR ad agency, so I kind of was in that space
Hmm.
at the time. Um, and also at that convention was uh, a vice president from DreamWorks and a um, director of that creative agency inside of PlayStation. So I did the talk. After the talk, I was standing at one of those belly bar tables, chatting with some of the other students. And first, the DreamWorks guy comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, here's my card. Let's chat." I'm like, "Oh yeah, nice, DreamWorks. I'm totally gonna hit this guy up, and maybe I'll get a job at DreamWorks." And then the PlayStation guy comes over. And he's like, "We need to do some AR stuff. Would you like to work for PlayStation?" And I said yes, and that's how it went. That's how it went. You know, you gotta take those when opportunities like that come. You just gotta take them. So I took that opportunity, and yeah, since then it's been I've just kind of been moving laterally within the PlayStation umbrella.
Dude, that is absolutely awesome. And you weren't even expecting that thing to come your way. You were just you did a talk, and then there were people there, and then they were offered you a job on the spot. Um, how did you end up doing that talk? What were the things that led to you being in that position?
Yeah, it's like I said, it's kind of a domino effect. So myself and a few other people in my class. So Nate Dank, Kevin Doe, those guys. Nate's at Psionics now. Kevin's at Twitch. We wanted to make a space for game developers at San Diego State because there was none. There were no classes. There was no type of games education there. So that's why we created the Aztec Game Lab. Um, and through that, like I mentioned, we needed a space for the club to meet. So we kind of just reached out to different departments. And Sean at ITS, he was also in a position where he wanted to, like, he had some VR equipment that he wanted to use to, like, link teachers up with students who could help them create applications for their classes. Like, astronomy professor could have a VR app. I know some people worked on that. So that's the type of stuff. So it's kind of mutually beneficial for him to give us a place for the club to stay. And we could also help him because we'd have students filtering through to help out make apps for these professors. So that's how I met Sean, was through the club. And then and like I said, I also happened to work at an AR place. So it's all like very freak circumstance that I ended up at that convention on that day. But yeah, it's, as with any of this stuff, it's a mix of being prepared and being like a tiny bit lucky. And then just seizing it.
Man, that's so cool, man. And honestly, to me, it almost feels like you manifested that opportunity in a way because of kind of the way you are. You took it upon yourself and your classmates to actually, create the club, and obviously you seeked internships, and basically you're doing all the right things.
Sure, but there's definitely some luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a big part of it is that it's not just luck, but you have to be prepared for when that luck happens, right?
Precisely. Yeah.
So I think the saying is success is where preparation meets opportunity, and
yes,
you're a prime example of that. And I love one of the distinctions is that you were looking to get into game development, and there was no game development program, there was no club, and instead of you saying, oh, there's no club, I'm just not going to do it, you and some friends actually went out and created it. Like, what was your thought process to go from, like, okay, this is what we want to do? Like, when you start something, you're beginning it from scratch. Like, what was that process for you?
It was mostly born out of frustration. Honestly. The main two folks who started this thing up were myself, like initially was myself, and Nathan Dank. Nathan is ridiculous. That guy is like super high capacity for work, and he's super smart. So I met him. I just happened to meet him in a like entry level computer science class where he was writing a game engine. Yeah, so he was sitting in the back of the class, not paying attention, writing a game engine. And at the time, I was doing OpenGL stuff and writing a game engine. So we would chat about that, and we just kind of had this mutual frustration with our university that there was no place for us to learn about game development. And even though we kind of knew that we were going to be the only people who cared about engine programming and that type of thing when we started this community, it would have just been nice to have more people to chat with about this stuff. So yeah, that was the inception of it. And one day Nate offhand was like, hey, we should get some people together and do a club. And then I think that's when he brought in Kevin. And Kevin was ridiculous. He did all the like crazy paperwork stuff and like made flyers, and it just exploded from there. And I'm actually very surprised, but like super happy that it's still going pretty strong nowadays too. I visited like a couple weeks ago, and they're doing really well.
Dude, that's awesome. And then you created this club, and obviously it's successful now. Like, what are the foundations that you set to help it survive even after you left?
Right. So that was the tough part. We actually weren't thinking that far ahead at the time. But kind of the most important thing to keep the club going that I've seen, just watching it organically grow and continue, is to have someone. It has to be at least one person who is passionate about games and is also passionate about helping other people. And luckily, we've had that person come up and take the reins for each year that after we left. So Kane did that. You Byron and Kane did that when I left, and Kane kind of helped to foster that in some more people when he was the president. And now Liz is doing an awesome job. Liz and Allie are doing a great job doing that too. So it's just, as long as there's somebody who cares about games and cares about helping other folks, then that's really what matters. The format of the club can change, the content of the club can change, but you just need that person who cares to keep it going.
Dude, that's awesome. And then, like, switching gears a little bit, I know one of the things that you mentioned is your current role and the roles that you've held are like tech animator. For those listeners who don't know what a tech animator does, would you mind explaining kind of in layman's terms, what is the importance of a tech artist?
Yeah, so it's tech art, not tech animation. So it's I think tech art is the most overused term in game development. It can mean so many different things. But me specifically, I'm a general tech artist. So I work on, specifically for my studio, I work on Python tools. Sometimes I work on pipeline tools. I work on shaders. I probably lean most toward the shader TD role, but whatever needs to be done, like anything that bridges the gap between programming and art, that's what I take care of. So even stuff like making sure the game's in budget, like on The Last of Us 2, I spent a lot of time playing through the game, figuring out where the game's over budget and why it's over budget, and then communicating that to art. Telling them why they need to make their art look a little bit worse so that the game can run smoothly. That's my job also. But yeah, it's the main thing is being that bridge between art and programming and being able to talk both of their languages.
Can you explain a little bit more? Like, how did you get into tech art? You mentioned you had that internship working in the AR space, right? Was that kind of what got you started? Like, what did you do there? And like, what contents of your presentation like really got DreamWorks' attention as well as Sony's?
I think it actually started my like passion for tech art started much before college. Mm-hmm. Even like back in middle school, I was writing shaders in Unity, just like tinkering. Like I remember back in the day, my parents, I'm very grateful. My parents bought me a laptop as a kid, and I just remember sitting on the couch for hours and hours looking up Unity tutorials and writing shaders and banging my head against the wall trying to figure out how things worked. And at the time, I didn't know what tech art was. I just knew that I liked writing shaders and making things look pretty in Unity. And even into high school, I kept doing the same things in college. I didn't know what tech art was. I thought I wanted to be a graphics programmer. That's why I was writing a game engine in college. It turns out there's kind of a line between tech art and graphics programming, and I didn't know where I wanted to fall. I was a graphics programmer at Sony, and it's way more. It's less of the like fun stuff, in my opinion. It's more of like setting up the infrastructure for things and the nitty gritty of talking to the computer and the drivers and stuff. But how I realized I wanted to do tech art, I don't know if I'm answering the question anymore, but is just I got rid of the notion of I want to be that graphics programmer that I've been hanging on to, and I just focused on what I actually like doing, which is the making this stuff pretty part. And that's how I landed on the kind of shader TD tech artist role. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, that was extremely helpful. Yeah, that's impressive, man. That you've been working in Unity. What version of Unity did you start with?
Oh, it was before Unity 5.
Which is crazy.
It was back when they didn't let you blit to render textures, so you had to buy Unity Pro to be able to do image effects. So they were actually gating features behind a paywall back then.
Yeah.
Before they realized that they were going to get killed by Unreal if they didn't open up. Yeah, so wild.
That's really cool, man. And by the time you got to college, you were just kind of you knew there wasn't a game dev program, but so were you just kind of you were just doing it on your own? Were there were game classes, right, in state or
There are two. I think the advanced class was bootstrapped while I was there.
okay.
So, I mean, there's not a great game program, and the class it doesn't go, you can't really go in depth into game development in a single class, especially programming. So it was a good, like, taste of game development. It might, like, might get you started, but yeah, it's not a game dev program.
Can you kind of go into like, because I've had similar frustrations with my program and the path that I wanted to take. Can you kind of explain what were some gaps that you perceived that maybe you wish that they had covered more in the program?
Gaps. More of a chasm. So, hold on.
Oh, I knew this was going to be a good question for Barry.
Yeah, it seems like he's going to be... Oh, he's got a book. He's got a book, and he's putting his headset back on. Okay, this is going to be deep.
So I didn't go into a game development program at my university, so I should have expected that. It's okay that they didn't teach me game dev stuff. But yeah, most of the things I didn't get in my university, I was able to get from this guy. And I know you guys, I've mentioned this freaking book to you. This is my favorite book. It's Game Engine Architecture by Jason Gregory. I'm actually lucky enough to work with Jason now at Naughty Dog. Super cool guy, super smart. But yeah, this book covers, it's an engine programming book, but all of the concepts in this book, I think anybody who's going into a technical field in game development should understand this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's everything from like how game engines allocate memory to like how asset management works and like how the build pipeline works. And a lot of people don't realize that all game engines, like commercial game engines, have these parts, but they just don't know about them because they're never exposed to them. It just makes you a better developer knowing this stuff. So I was lucky enough to come across this book. I think Nate introduced me to it. And this has, like, it filled the gaps. It filled that chasm for me. So it's really hard to tell you what gaps there were because it just was non-existent. There was no games education, really.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's cool.
So for the listeners that are out there and that don't see this book,
Sorry.
It looks like a dictionary. And it looks like it's several thousands of pages long. And there must be a wealth of information in there. And I'm wondering, Barry, now that you have the info from that book, are there any other resources, online tutorials, anything that can give the depth of knowledge and wisdom that comes from that book?
Yeah, I mean, you can learn this stuff from tons of there are tons of tutorials and YouTube videos and stuff that give kind of bits and pieces. But I especially like this book because it still kind of scratches the surface, but it goes into everything at once. It's got everything that you need to get started. This is also just scratching the surface. There's a lot a lot past this, but yeah, I always refer this book to people because it's got everything in the same place, and you're not going to get piecemeal for a long time. Just trying to learn this stuff, I used tutorials, I used YouTube videos. Probably the most informative pieces were like write-ups or research papers.
Yeah.
Which I usually have to read 4 or 5 times before I actually get it. But yeah, for someone who's just starting off, I know a lot of your viewership is people who are trying to break in. I would say just pick some chapters and read them. You're going to learn something. I think. I reread this book every now and again. Obviously not cover to cover, but there are things that I pick up in here that I didn't get the first time around.
And one of the things that I want to touch on is, like, in order for you to get through that book, that's like a massive book. I know that you have to have some sort of internal motivation to do that, right? Like, nobody's holding a gun to your head to read this book. What is it about you internally that makes you want to consume this information?
I mean, it's not something magical, I just think it's interesting. It's like, as a kid, I hated reading fiction. I hated like the fantasy books and stuff. It was boring to me. It's like, I don't care what Harry Potter's up to, who cares? I just think this stuff is interesting. It's fun to me. It's fun to me to know the inner workings of a heap allocator and that type of stuff. It's just cool. I don't know. I'm sorry. That's a terrible answer, but
No, not at all. And part of another kind of follow-up question to that is, one, it sounds like you just followed what is naturally interesting to you. Kind of like after you taste something, you know what types of foods you like and dislike, right? For these activities, you naturally knew that you liked them versus disliking them. And then going into like starting a club from scratch, obviously there were challenges in there, right? Mm-hmm. What were the things that helped propel you to come across all of these challenges and then overcome them? Because I can only imagine how frustrating it is to build a club from scratch, right? Mm-hmm. What were the challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
Challenges we had to overcome in building the club. Let's see. I mean, the most challenging bit, honestly, was the garbage clerical stuff that we had to get past the red tape with the university. I think, I think the first semester that we operated, we weren't actually a club. We were not an official club. But we still had like a good amount of people turning out, and it was actually it was not very hard making that club, because it turns out there were a ton of people like us who needed a space to talk about video game development. The biggest challenge apart from that, probably was figuring out what, like, people came there with the idea that, like, in this club, I'm going to learn something, or I'm going to get better at game dev, or I'm going to make a video game. And we were also students who were also trying to learn things about game dev and figure things out, but we were also trying to, like, provide this education that the university didn't have. So the hardest part was figuring out what people wanted and how to deliver that, I think. Yeah. And I think that's still a challenge for them, because some people want to do workshops and, like, be told this is how you use Unity or whatever. Some people just want to, and people have different skill levels. So some people just want to sit down and grind out a game the entire semester. So that was definitely, I think Kane is the one who hit the sweet spot with that, though. they started making games like for the entire semester, start to finish, make a game, and I think that's the best way to go about it. Like, you can sit down and watch as many tutorials as you want, you can listen to as many talks as you want, but you can read as many books as you want, but until you get in front of the computer and you make something, it doesn't matter. Like, you're not internalizing it until you sit down and make the art or type out the code.
Yeah, that's so true. I remember being a part of the club and kind of seeing that turning point. There's a point where like you and Nate were still students, but were really busy working, so it was hard to attend the club as much.
Yeah.
And there was a point where I remember attending GDC, and after coming back from GDC, I'm like, Kane, we got to make some games. He's like, I'm with you, dude. And so then I remember we talked to like Nate, and he's just like, hey, can we just start making games? Like, I know that you're pretty busy. We don't know as much as you do, but we'd love to just start getting something together. And he's just like, yeah, fuck yeah, do it, man. Like, I'm pretty busy. Like, thanks for stepping up. So, yeah, I can definitely see the challenge in running the club.
Yep. Yeah, you guys killed it with that.
And like, I know that you talked a lot about what are the things that you actually did to get you to where you are now. What are some of the sacrifices that you had to make? Because obviously we only have a certain amount of time, right? And sometimes you have to choose between like game development versus parties, right? Or like, what are some of those things that you had to consciously say, you know what, I'm going to put this activity on the side or on the back burner so that I can focus on game development? Did you have anything like that?
Yes. So I was lucky that I started doing this early before I actually had responsibilities. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time to learn this stuff and to actually get sat in front of the keyboard and do it. So like I said, I spent a lot of time on my parents' couch working on learning this stuff, and I spent a lot of time not doing my college homework and working on this stuff. Go to college, do your homework, but not too much. Focus on the stuff that you really care about, because that's what's going to matter. So one of the sacrifices, like I was a student in high school. I was an AB student in my early college years, and then by my fifth year in college, I was like, C's are good enough. I already work at Sony. I've already proved myself. I can get by as long as I understand this stuff. That's really important. Who cares if I get a C in world history?
Yeah. Yeah. Me too, man.
So wait a second. I want you to confirm right now that when the person from PlayStation and DreamWorks, when they approached you, they had zero idea what your grades were. Is that right? Okay.
They didn't care.
Okay. They didn't care because you showed up to this conference, you did a talk on something that you were passionate about, and from there they said, you know what, we know everything we need to know about Barry to offer him a job. So listen out there, folks. That passion and the leadership in particular that I think Barry showed by doing a talk, because it takes courage to do a talk, right? To make a presentation, put yourself in front of a crowd and discuss something where everybody's all eyeballs on you, right? So with that being said, what are some pieces of advice that you would give to aspiring game developers out there?
Mm-hmm. The first piece of advice I always give is that there's no such thing as good advice. There's no such thing as good advice. Everything is relative, and everything is based on your circumstances. So when you're making these decisions for yourself, you need to just consider your position and do what you think is going to put you in that position where you're prepared, but you're also putting yourself in positions where you might get lucky. Putting yourself out there. So yeah, just and besides that, some advice that I can give is just put yourself out there, take opportunities that come your way, learn your craft, like really learn your craft. The hardest thing is to find out. You don't know what you don't know, right? So like when a lot of people who want to get into games who don't have a game dev program don't have someone to tell them, this is what you don't know, go learn it. So I would say seek out those things that you don't know and learn it. And that should get you there if you got a little bit of luck.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And just a question for you, like, so I gotta know. So how did it feel when you first found out that you got the job with Naughty Dog? Because I know that's something that you've been working towards for quite some time, right? That was kind of like a dream company for you.
Yeah, I grew up playing Jack and Daxter, so damn, it felt good. Um, I mean, at the same time though, like I worked on The Last of Us 2 from Visual Arts,
Hmm.
so I kind of knew a lot of people at the studio, and I was comfortable with their tools and stuff. So really, like work wise, day to day, not much changed, but yeah, it's pretty awesome. Like it's nice.
So it sounded like your journey to Naughty Dog was by design, right? And you knew that you wanted to work there. What were the actual steps that you took to like go through the application process? And like, did you wait for the job to open up before you applied, or did you know it was coming beforehand? Like, what was that process for you?
Yeah, I wasn't actually like waiting for an opportunity to go to Naughty Dog. I never really like. I've always liked the idea of working there, but it was never my like end goal to go to Naughty Dog. But it's just another one of those situations where um, it's something that I knew that I'd like to do, and the opportunity arose, and then I just jumped on it. So it's not like there was much pre-planning. It was just I could see a path, and I just went down that path.
Yeah, and the cool thing for you is since you've been using Unity and been so familiar with game dev for so long, you've probably had the chance to experiment with a lot of different areas of development, right?
Mm. Yeah, yeah, especially not yeah when you don't know what you want to do, but you want to do game dev, you end up trying a whole bunch of different things. But it turns out I hate animating. I hate animating so much. I'm so glad I don't have to do that.
Dude, let's work on a game where you do the music too, because I know you can. I know you're a musician as well.
I am I'm a like mediocre musician at best, but I'll take you up on that. That sounds super fun.
Really? Yeah, dude, let's
Yeah.
do it.
And then I know that you're involved with lots of other organizations. You mentioned the Game Development Club. I believe I've seen you at IGDA, International Game Developers Association, participated in some game jams with you.
Hmm.
What are some other organizations that you're a part of that we haven't mentioned yet?
Mm. These days, I haven't had much time to do other things, and also, with the pandemic, there hasn't been much opportunity to. Um, but yeah, I've mostly been focusing when it comes to like community game dev community stuff. I've mostly been focusing my energy on like people in my circle, who are trying to get into the industry, and then helping out like every once in a while when I see there's someone coming up into a leadership position in the game dev club, I'll reach out to them and say like, hey, I recognize that you're doing a good job, and hit me up if you have any questions, that type of thing. So I haven't been like going out to any other organizations. I've mostly just been trying to help out the people I'm currently connected with.
Gotcha. Just keeping a small group of like a small circle of people that are into game development that you consistently work with. So how do you choose those people that are in that circle? Because I'm guessing that it's not just random people, but there's certain like characteristics that you look for in the people that you work with and collaborate with. Can you give some insight into that?
For sure, yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to see when someone cares a lot about their craft. Like people who are working on their craft and like maybe posting some of their work, or even people who are asking questions about the craft and just trying to those people are trying to gain skill and gain information. It's obvious, and those are the people I always want to help out because I remember being in their spot. So yeah, it's not hard to find those folks. There aren't a whole lot of people like that, but it's super easy to see when you come across them.
Yeah, man. Something I always loved seeing that you did in the club was after you kind of stepped down from the leadership position, you would stop by every once in a while and just kind of chill in the corner with your laptop. And you always seemed pretty busy, but like if someone approached you, you were always super willing to help them out, explain what you were working on, and basically answer any questions that they had in regards to game dev. Because I'm sure like we'd mentioned you a lot in the club, so they knew of you, but had never actually met you before. So that was always really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. And like I wouldn't be where I am without the people who took a chance on me and helped me out. Like Sean, like I mentioned a few times, that guy's awesome. Appreciate him a lot. There was another alumni named Mike Gonzalez. That guy, he's like he's a product manager or something. He does IP stuff for Blizzard now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he helped connect me with some folks. He connected me with the CTO of that AR company that I interned for. And just like, yeah, it's just, I wouldn't even call it paying it forward or whatever. Like, it's not even about the karma. It's just like, this industry, like getting into this industry is so much easier when you have someone pulling for you. And I just want to do that for people because they're people who did it for me.
That's awesome. And then you mentioned like the people that have helped you out and kind of helped mentor you to get into the industry. What made you want to continue to interact with them? Like obviously you made a connection somehow, but then that relationship kept growing. It wasn't just like a one-time meeting. Like, what were the experiences that led you to keep in touch? Was it you being proactive about reaching to them, or was it vice versa? Like, how did that work out for you?
I mean, every situation's kind of different, but myself from my early college years, I feel like I was kind of I'm a huge introvert, and I'm not very good at the social stuff. Honestly, I'm not very good at the social parts of networking. So I think it's more that I found really like awesome, compassionate people who wanted to help me, because it was mostly them like reaching out or people connecting me with other folks. But yeah, there was a degree of maintaining those relationships. You have to maintain those relationships. And I think it took a while for me for it to click that it's like, you want to help other people out too. It's like, these people are helping you, be grateful, and like, you can help other people out too. It's not a one-way street. So yeah, it makes this industry much easier to have friends and colleagues that you have this mutual, you're ready to help each other. It's a community.
Yeah, and I don't think we went into this, but you mentioned moving laterally between positions. Did you ever do a formal application process for the positions that you have now?
Once. My only application was for Naughty Dog.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was like, they know me So it was mostly formality, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But I still went through the interview process and all that. But yeah, otherwise, like, I got my job at PlayStation, as I explained to you, and then actually my first day was an interview. It was my interview, and I walked around the studio with the one of the directors, and he was telling me about the job and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I thought they were still like screening me to see if they wanted to hire me, and then they walked me into the studio, and they're like, "And this is your desk, and this is your PC set up already."
What?
I'm like, "Okay, sure." The other job at Visual Arts, I was working at Creative at the time, and the technical art director over there at the time, when I think he's at That's No Moon now, great guy, like super great guy. I miss working with him. He had me work on some stuff for them just on the side because they needed extra help in tech art and creative. Kind of was fine sharing the time. And I was over there, working on some stuff, really enjoying the stuff I was doing for them. And offhand, I said something like, yeah, this stuff is really interesting, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, why don't you just work with us? Like, why don't you just apply? Why don't you just stay here? I'm like, okay. And I did. And that's what happened. So, yeah, it's very much been organic, moving between studios. So yeah, and as you can see, it's about making relationships. It's if you want to go somewhere, if you want to do something, it's usually easier when someone knows who the heck you are over there where you want to go.
And so in our previous episode, we interviewed someone who also worked at your studio, and they mentioned working on different projects. So can you kind of explain? I think the San Diego studio has a kind of a different setup than, say, San Mateo or Santa Monica studio, right? Don't you guys interface with, or can you explain any of that, like how it works with like the projects that kind of go through you guys?
Yeah, I actually don't work there anymore, so I don't want to I don't want to speak for them.
Yeah. Just like anything you can, nothing that like,
But yeah, it's a PlayStation Visual Arts is a visual arts department in PlayStation, so they work on a bunch of different games. That's all I could probably say about it.
Okay, yeah, don't want to pry too hard on that one for sure.
And then moving forward, like, I know that you have this amazing position at Naughty Dog right now. How do you see your career evolving down the line? Like, is that even something that you thought about, or are you just kind of taking it and letting your career grow organically?
Yeah, I'm not the type of person that I'm the type of person that thinks about the future for sure. So I can tell you what I would like to do with my career. I really enjoy. I enjoy the part of the job that's understanding the creative vision for a game, and helping everybody get on the same page and move toward that creative vision. That's one of the big reasons I like doing game jams, is because I really like helping everybody come up with this cool idea for a game, and then I like having a top-down understanding of it and helping everybody get to that finish line, and making something cohesive. So way down the line, I'd like to be a director, because of that. I know right now that where I'm at in my career, I'm not ready for even to be a lead. I think that I don't have the people skills yet. I don't have the organizational skills yet. But yeah, like I'd like to eventually become a senior tech artist, maybe principal, move laterally into a lead position when I do get those people skills. And then at some point be a director, because what I really, really like is just having that top down. It's not even about like, I know for some people who want to be like from the outside, when you want to be a director, you want to be the person with control, you know? It's not about having control. It's about understanding the top level of whatever department you're in, understanding the top level of tech art, understanding the top down understanding of the art direction, whatever, and being able to help the people who are doing like the lion's share of that work, helping them stay on the same page and get to that goal. And that's something I'm really interested in. So it's way down the line, but we'll see.
And one of the things that you mentioned that kind of blows my mind a little bit is you're talking about improving your people skills. Now, from my understanding, from your this experience that you have, it's amazing people skills that helped you get to where you are, the networking, the helping other people. Where do you think you have opportunities to grow to get to that director level position?
Yeah, so this is stuff I've just been thinking about now, and trying to work on, but just the basics. Like, I'm terrible at public speaking. I feel like I'm doing pretty good here at this interview, but generally I'm terrible at public speaking. Like, when I need to sit in front of an audience and, like, give them some information, I'm awful about that. Like, it's so bad. And that's a big part of being a director or a lead, is keeping everybody informed. That's one thing I need to work on. Another thing is just like, you have to be able to connect with everybody on your team. Like kind of on a personal level, like you have to be able to connect with them and know them. I'm not very good at that. I've got my close friends. I connect with people who have similar interests to me. But generally, just like if someone doesn't have general, interests that are the same as me, I have trouble with that type of connection. So it's those like nitty gritty people skills of being able to be that person who makes everybody comfortable. I got to work on that.
Dude, that sounds really cool. Personally, that's something that I've actually been looking to improve in myself as well. And in fact, just yesterday I went to the bookstore, and I those two topics, right, relating to people and public speaking, were what I was looking at. I didn't pick it up, but there's a book I'm looking at on emotional intelligence, and I did pick up a book called "Do I Make Myself Clear" by Harold Evans. I already read a chapter of it, but basically it goes into like communicating with others, and it's a really interesting perspective. It mentions that like we're in this age of social media where we want to have information short, digestible, and concise, but it's kind of done the complete opposite because of the limited word counts, right? It's designed to fit easily onto someone's cell phone screen. So somewhere along the way, we lost that art of communication that we used to have before, like social media was as prevalent as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I wrote that down. But yeah, dude, it's not. I feel like it's much easier to grind and get those hard skills down.
It is.
Than it is to get your soft skills in a good spot. So let's chat some more about that, because yeah, it's that's definitely something that I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talking about it, but it's important.
Yeah,
it's important stuff.
Yeah, it was something I realized in myself. I was trying to send like a simple Slack message, and it took me longer than it should have to explain myself efficiently. And like, I feel like it was so easy to wing it in English classes in high school and college, but it was always a different style of writing that they taught you. It wasn't persuasive. It wasn't how to work on a team, how to effectively communicate yourself. So I realized a deficit in my skill set that I'm trying to work on and improve now.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and something I've found in what the way I've started to improve these skills is I'm actually lucky my fiance, she's like the most social person you can meet. She's like, she makes friends with everybody. Like, I can have an interaction where I'm like, man, we'll get out of an interaction, I can't stand that person. She's like, oh no, they were fine. They were great. You gotta everybody's nice and awesome. I'm like, okay. So I've been trying to take cues from her. And I don't know. I don't know how the heck people are able to just connect with everybody. But yeah, it's it's going to be a journey getting to that point.
Definitely.
One of the things that stands out to me is that you mentioned that like a fear of public speaking, yet the way that you got your first job at PlayStation was after a presentation, right?
And I was terrified.
Yeah, and you were terrified. And like one of the cool things is like knowing that you have room to grow. And that's something that I do in particular is just love reading, consuming books, learning how to improve my skill sets. And something that I've come across is actually in a book called From Good to Great by Jim Collins, where they did studies of a lot of different leadership styles in organizations. And one of the things that they found in a lot of these really great companies, they've got leaders that show very introverted characteristics. And it's interesting because in society, a lot of times we see the big brash leader, the big voice, the person that's most outspoken. Those are the ones that get most of the recognition. But the truth is, a lot of leaders out there are like very effective leaders are introverts, and we don't know about them because they don't shine the light on themselves. They shine the light on the others around them.
Gotcha.
Right.
So as an introvert, as you're improving your leadership and your communication skills, I know one of the things like that I've had to deal with is making myself want to be like a person that I'm not, like seeing those extroverts out there and saying, I need to be more like him, instead of finding my true voice and how do I be an effective leader with my own natural skills. So I totally get the communication, leadership, and just building up skill sets. So Good to Great by Jim Collins, Level 5 Leaders is that's the little topic that they have in there. Highly recommend it for introverts like us, right?
I wrote it down as soon as you mentioned it.
Yeah, I'm writing it down.
Yeah, and just the challenge of being an introvert and making those connections, something that's been helpful for me, you've touched on it already, is just finding ways to add value to other people and genuinely like take interest in what are the things that they're looking for and being able to provide that to them. I know there have been other people that have come across in your life where it was unexpected, but instead of you being the one that was lucky where they helped you out, they were lucky in that they met you and you were able to help them out. You already kind of mentioned one of those situations where you were talking to someone and you say, hey, did you want to work on this project? And you kind of transition to there. Has there been anything the other way around where you helped somebody else out and then it really kind of snowballed into something in the future? You know what I mean?
Let me see. Let's see. Let's see. Kane, I guess, is one of the folks that, I met him as a freshman in college. And he just was, like I mentioned, when you see those people who like really care about your craft, you can recognize it immediately. He was one of those people, like, as soon as I met him, I knew, like, he is going to do something awesome. I just wanted to help him out because he reminded me of myself too, just like wanting just a thirst for knowledge, he ended up we ended up chatting, and we'd bounce ideas off each other for the years he was in college, and worked on some projects together. And when he graduated, he was looking for a job, and we needed a tech artist. It was about the time I was moving to Naughty Dog. We needed a tech artist at Visual Arts, so I recommended him for that. He didn't need my help. That guy, he's a smart dude, and he was going to kick ass either way. But I was in the position to help him, so I did. But yeah, I mean, just like other people did for me, and that's what I mean. It's much easier to get by in this industry when you've got people that you're looking out for and people looking out for you. Yeah, I am excited to see what Kane does. He's just recently in the industry, but he's gonna, like, I've already heard from his leads that I still chat with at Visual Arts that he's kicking ass. So hopefully that snowballs. I know that's gonna snowball into something.
That's awesome, man. Mm-hmm. And as we near the end of the episode, are there any like parting words of advice that you'd like to give to our audience? I know we talked a lot about like we worked on a bunch of personal projects, finding your niche, going from graphics programming to making things pretty with technical art. So are there any things that any takeaways that our audience can have for that? And is also where can people find you, like social media, LinkedIn, stuff like that?
Okay. So the first part, parting words of advice. No advice is good advice. Just evaluate your situation and do what you think is best. Find out what you love to do and go deep. You might be learning things that are kind of tangential to what you end up doing. Like I went very deep on graphics programming, and now I'm a tech artist. But now I've got that tangential knowledge, and when I need to hop in and do, graphics programming stuff, I can do that. So go deep, figure out what you love to do, and go deep. It's gonna suck if you start to go deep on something you hate. So just find what you like, go deep. And I guess the last thing is just don't be afraid to reach out to people. Don't be afraid to lean on people. Chances are you're going to find someone who wants to help you. And just be open to helping people back. And some combination of those things, some combination of listening to my advice and not listening to my advice will probably get you where you want to go.
That's awesome, man.
And social media I don't really do, but you can post my LinkedIn on this chat if you like.
Okay. Awesome, man. And well, that concludes this episode of the EmpowerUp Podcast. Thanks again, Barry, for agreeing to come on. I know you were busy this weekend with other stuff, so it was nice that you made the time for this.
No problem. It's always nice chatting. Yeah, good catching up with you guys too.
Yeah, man, definitely.
Stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. So just wanted to let you guys know that we are on YouTube now. You can find us at EmpowerUp Podcast. We're usually the top result on there, as well as Spotify and basically anywhere you get your podcasts. So yeah, you can watch us on there, and also follow us on Twitch if you want to get notifications for when we go live and stuff like that. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Peace out.